Ladies and gentlemen, this is Immersive HUD, a Fallout 4 mod whose motto is HUD when you need, hide when you don't. Basically, it tries to hide the heads-up display when you do not need it, and when you need it is, well, basically up to you. It's completely customizable. You can set it so that it comes on with a key. For example, there's the compass, or you can set it to appear when you run, when you're in combat, or even when you're aiming. So there's the compass that appears when I aim. The mod is completely customizable via a settings holotape in your inventory, and it will work for PC and Xbox One, although it does require the HUD framework mod to be installed. And if you're wondering what the big difference is between this mod and the Immersive HUD Lite mod that I added previously, basically this one has all of the functionality that I intended it to have, and it doesn't hide any of the other heads-up display elements that are completely dynamic already. So for example, the area location, any messages or quest updates you get, these will all still appear even when you have the heads-up display switched off, which of course is a lot more useful and a lot more convenient. When you install the mod for the first time and load your game up, the mod will actually be disabled. To enable it, go along to the inventory, miscellaneous, and find a settings holotape called Immersive HUD. Activate it, and you will suddenly get a lot of options to change the activation settings. I'm going to leave these as they are for now, and you will gain two items, the iHUD compass and the iHUD toggle. I'm going to quick key those, hotkey those, so that I can show you them. Immediately the heads-up display will disappear. If I press the button for the compass will appear. If I press it again, it will disappear, and the same is true for the heads-up display toggle. By default, the crosshair is missing completely. You will see no dot crosshair at the center. However, when you look at things like the power armor, the activate crosshair does appear. The same is true with containers and items on a bench. This of course makes it a lot easier to see exactly what you are ready to activate or pick up. If you want the dot crosshair back for some reason, you can of course toggle the heads-up display back on and you will get the crosshair, including the weapons crosshair. Now some people would like the heads-up display removed but the dot crosshair to remain. It's basically because some people find it a little nauseating to move if they don't have a crosshair to look at. If you are such a person, go to the settings holotape and change dot crosshair from on toggle to always on. If you just click it, it will change it to always on, and when you go back out, you will now have the dot crosshair but no weapons crosshair. If you also want the weapon crosshair, again, back to the settings holotape and change weapon crosshair to always on. This is probably going to be useful for people who like to do from the hip shooting as well. If you are the sort of person who likes to know whether they are hungry or thirsty or fatigued in any way, you can change the active effects to always on, and the same is true for the flashlight, although to be honest with you, you probably don't need a heads-up display element to tell you that you got the flashlight on. However, I will show you this element. Now you can see I'm thirsty, and that will stay on no matter what I press. I can toggle the heads-up display on and off, but I will always know that I'm thirsty. For some people, especially playing survival, that is going to be useful. Also, if I turn the flashlight on now, you can see it. If I switch that back off, when I switch the flashlight on now, there is no heads-up display icon unless I toggle the heads-up display to the on setting. The other settings for compass, health bar and action points have quite a few more options. So if I go to compass activation, you can see it's set to not show the compass in combat, but to show it when aiming. You can set it for any of these conditions: weapon drawn, sneaking, sprinting, completely up to you. If I go back, if I now aim, I can see the compass. Personally, I like to use the compass toggle but for the rest of the heads-up display I prefer the automatic activation. If I go to health bar activation settings, it is set to come on during combat or if my health goes below 90%. Now the standard heads-up display does show your health if you've got any damage. That's even if you have 1 hit point of damage via radiation, which does annoy me, so I set mine to 90%. That is the default. If it goes below 90%, the health bar will show and you can take some action to alleviate that problem, but perhaps you want it to be set even lower or have it for one of these particular conditions. Action points are handled pretty much the same way. You can choose to have the action point bar come on if you're sprinting in combat or if your action points go below a certain amount. You will notice you can actually set this above 100%, and that is because you can wear items that increase your action points, so in fact you go over the 100% mark as far as the game is concerned. I'm looking into a way to actually make it take this into account, but for now what you will have to do is look at the action points you have got on your character and find a happy medium. For me it's about 110%. If I set it to 110%, the action points will stay off unless I get to about 90%. There you go, 90, 85%. Immersive HUD has absolutely no effect on the powered armor HUD. I am looking into making a separate mod that makes the powered armor heads-up display a lot more dynamic, but when you climb into powered armor you will get the standard vanilla HUD. Immersive HUD really is only for the heads-up display when out of power armor. On the issue of responsiveness, I've aimed for 0.4 seconds both on PC and console. It can occasionally take a little longer, perhaps 0.7, 0.8, and maybe even as long as a second for an element to appear when it should, but generally it responds pretty well. I am looking into a version 2 of the mod that has much faster responsiveness, perhaps even as much as 1/10 of a second. We'll just have to see how well I do there. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Immersive HUD version 1 for PC and Xbox One. If you have any feedback to give me, please leave it on the Nexus page. I try to check there pretty regularly. And beyond that, all that's left to be said is I hope you enjoy the mod and good luck. Have fun.